Ladies and gentlemen, and friends of all kinds, it is my honor to introduce the Covenant Renewal class of 5782. Now the Covenant Renewal class of 5782 would like to share with you Esa Einai, I Look to the Mountains, the mountain song.
From my mountain to your mountain,
I'm going to invite the Covenant Renewal class, our students, to go and find your seats as I say a few words of welcome. And Shavuot Tov, we wish you a good week. Chag Sameach, a happy Shavuot to all of you, both those of you who are here in the sanctuary and those of you who are tuning in on our YouTube channel. I'm Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick. I am joined by my colleagues, Rabbi Jason Levine and Rabbi Dana Benson, as well as, you might have figured out already, the Covenant Renewal class of 5782. And Ben Wintraub, I'm sorry, as a Zlotnick, I totally get being at the end of the alphabet, but I'm going to introduce everybody in alphabetical order. So Flora Bradley, Ben Kahn, Susanna Chakali, Neela Klinghoffer, Cole Lithman, Maddie Markfield, Zeb Roshi, Max Seitz, Joey Sider, Oscar Simon, Sage Taylor, Maddie Tim, Rachel Wexler, and Benjamin Wintraub. Last but not least, W and Z is last but not least. So it is so wonderful to see all of you here, and truly this year it is sweeter than it's ever been before, because this is our first Shavuot evening service, our first Covenant Renewal service in person since COVID. And Shavuot, as you may or may not know, is our celebration where since Passover, when we were liberated out of any dark and narrow place where we once were, we come to this moment of Mount Sinai, and it is the time when we celebrate the receiving of the sacred obligations of being Jewish. And in the late 19th century, early 20th century, a ceremony was created, a way of recognizing that maybe B'nai Mitzvah starts a little too early. Maybe it's more appropriate to celebrate our young people at a little bit of a later age. And so this imagery of being at Mount Sinai and celebrating teenagers who are finding who they are on a Jewish path is a really appropriate imagery. But I actually think for this class of students, for this group of individuals, the other story that we read on this holiday of Shavuot is more appropriate. And that's because the other story is the biblical story of Ruth. Ruth, the story goes, there was a devastating catastrophe. In this case, it was a famine in the land of Israel. And so there was an Israelite family who left the land because of this catastrophe. And Ruth learns about Judaism and Jewish ways during that time, and then creates a return path, not just for herself, but for the whole community, back to the homeland, back to a sense of connection with God, living Jewishly. I want to say that I believe that each student in this Covenant Renewal class walks in the path of our biblical ancestor, Ruth. This was the last B'nai Mitzvah class before COVID. So these were the students that I know, because one of these students is my own daughter, Susanna. These are the students who experienced B'nai Mitzvah, and all of us parents said, phew, when COVID started, thank God so-and-so had their bar B'nai Mitzvah last year. This is the group of students who in the intervening years, once they became B'nai Mitzvah, had to figure out, what does it mean to be Jewish? What does it mean to be a teenager? What does it mean to be part of a community in COVID? And I think my rabbinic colleagues will agree with me when I say that these students, despite COVID, have been courageous and inspiring, and therefore we know that the covenant of the Jewish people, whatever comes ahead of us, despite the experience of COVID, the covenant of the Jewish people are safe with these young people. So we celebrate Shavuot this evening, and I'll ask that if you have any cell phones that you turn them off. I promise you we got wonderful pictures of these students just before. And what we're about to engage in is the festival evening service led by the Covenant Renewal class. And so I want to add one more note, because I am here not just as one of the rabbis who has had the honor to work with these students, but I am, as I mentioned, also a mom. I'm actually a mom first and then a rabbi. And I was remembering when Susanna was a baby. Sorry, Suze, I didn't tell you I was going to tell this story. But I remember I was on maternity leave from my first congregation. And I was feeding Susanna in Rich and my very cramped one-bedroom New York City apartment. And I don't remember why, but it was in those first months when Susanna was still a newborn and I was crying. And I remember saying to my father on the phone, "She's going to become bat mitzvah in 2019. How are we ever going to get her there?" And she got there. And then each of these amazing students, I know that every parent in this sanctuary this evening understands my emotions of that night. And so each of these students will be leading us in the prayers, and it is an honor for us to invite each of the students. I know that Neela's parents feel the same way that I did, and so it's an honor to invite Neela Klinghoffer and Susanna Chakali forward. They will be lighting the festival candles. Susanna will be doing the reading on page 1, and Neela will be lighting the candles and saying the blessings. Please come up.
It is written, 3 times a year shall you hold a festival before God, the feast of Matzot in the month of spring, the time when you came out of Egypt, the feast of the harvest of the first fruit of your labor in the field, and the feast of ingathering the harvest at summer's end. The festivals are times to celebrate our joys and give thanks for them. We are blessed with food enough to sustain life, with beauty that delights the eye, with freedom to be ourselves, and with knowledge of the law that forms our moral being.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Yom Tov. May we be blessed with joy. May we be blessed with light. May we be blessed with peace.
There's a trick to this, watch. You do it this way. Ready? And so then you.
So we got the trick candles because COVID wasn't challenging enough.
Beautiful. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. You can go and have your seat.
And we move from the candle blessings to the real start of our service in a certain way, the words of the Baruch Hu, the words that mark that we as a community have enough people here together to be able to take part in having a service. And so with the people here, the people together, the people who are joining us virtually from wherever you are, we know that this is a sacred moment because we have these students who make up a minyan right here before us, quite frankly, which is pretty cool. And with them and with all of us, we are community. As we receive this moment of Sinai together, the words of the Baruch Hu can be found on the bottom of page 1. Please rise if you are able.
If you're standing, please be seated. Tonight on Shavuot, our sacred words are not just those from our prayers, but the sacred inspiration offered by our Covenant Renewal class themselves. We offer them the chance, the opportunity to reflect on this past year and to share their moments, their Jewish identity, their Jewish being. And we're so tremendously grateful because not only did they write beautifully, they wrote honestly. Some of them wrote a bit comically. And they all wrote in a profound manner. We're honored to hear their words scattered throughout our service tonight. Now, the words are printed in the back of the booklet. I would encourage you to read those of our friends in this class who could not be here tonight. But I would encourage you, for those students, when they're reading their essays, don't follow along with your finger, follow along up here. And you can always reflect back and read them later on if you so choose. Our first Divrei Brit, Words of the Covenant tonight, will be offered by Ben Kahn, Maddie Markfield, Max Seitz, and Oscar Simon. I invite the four of you to come up to the bima at this time. We invite Ben to begin.
How do I feel about my future as a Jew? That's a complicated question. I'm feeling a mix of emotions. I'm thinking a mix of thoughts. Thinking about my future at all is a mentally strenuous task. It involves thinking about what might happen if I continue on the current course of my life, or what might change than if I do now. However, thinking about my future as a Jew is a bit higher stakes. It's not just me that is affected by the decisions I make. Of course, that is most always the case, but when it comes to something like a religious community, all my actions have a somewhat direct effect on my local Jewish community, and less prominently, but importantly still, upon the global Jewish community. As I become older, more and more responsibility rests on my shoulders. Becoming a bar mitzvah was really the first time I had real Jewish responsibility. I had become an adult, and as such, I had more obligations. This has been more and more the case the older I've gotten. These obligations have been to support my Jewish community and help it thrive, but also to represent it. As a member of the Jewish community, I'm an ambassador. When I do anything, I have the responsibility to do it well and with good intent. So to answer this question, how do I feel about my future as a Jew? I feel nervous because of all the responsibility that rests on my shoulders, but I'm also excited for all the good I know I can bring to the Jewish community and to the world.
The Jewish experience is described by each and every individual member of the community, as well as the history and beliefs of us all. Each definition and every experience is portrayed by someone's own life story and the challenges they overcome. My Jewish identity is identified just the same. It's shown from stories and my lifestyle. I think it kind of began before I was ever in temple learning. It was when I was young and I was the only Jew I knew besides my family. While I don't know anyone Jewish, I also didn't understand that others were aligned in different, more known religions, or that Judaism was something few outside the community understood. I thought that it was known by everyone that Jews did this and believed that, just like all the other religions around me. My experiences and adventures only grew. However, it wasn't always positive. Few things to understand is my anxiety and worry. Ever since I was a child, as young as kindergarten, I remember worrying more about how I looked than how I was doing, and what I was doing. To the point, I don't remember what I learned in the temple. I only remember how anxious and scared I was, how I felt out of place because I knew I was different. I didn't dress the same, nor did I act the same. I hated it. This all happened, and it continued even by the point of COVID-19. It wasn't until I was given the opportunity of covenant renewal did I think about my identity again. Some background knowledge to me joining covenant renewal had to do with various mental health treatments I had received and the idea that I had wanted my identity back. I didn't like leaving it in the past with my anxiety. I kept thinking how it was something so important to me that I couldn't let the chance go. I'm still not very sure what I want to do with my identity and what exactly it means, but I think as long as I continue to follow the things I want for my life, I'll be able to achieve whatever my dream of identity is.
Avoid the applause will wait at the end, but we can enjoy together.
All right. In my life, I never really appreciated my Jewish identity. From when I was in first grade until 7th grade before my bar mitzvah, I never thought about how Judaism affects my life. I thought of religious school as something that I had to go to that was sometimes fun, but nothing more. I never really thought about the learning side of it, more just the games we played that were memorable, like dominating everyone in Gaga Ball. Sometimes. Even when I started studying for my bar mitzvah, I thought of it as just another chore. It was just something I had to do to get it over with. It wasn't until I got up on the bima in front of hundreds of people and started reading my Torah portion that I realized Judaism actually has an impact on my life. Instead of reading the words as just another task I had to do, I was reading them because I wanted to. At least that's what it felt like. It was kind of fun. Now, after having my bar mitzvah over 3 years ago, I've had time to reflect on what it means to be Jewish. Through Temple Beth Am, I've learned to really appreciate the Jewish community. Up until my bar mitzvah, I thought that once I read my Torah portion and did some prayers that I was done. That I was done with Judaism and would leave the temple and not come back. But obviously that didn't happen because I'm here now. I still attend this temple as a madri to help those much younger than me learn about their Jewish identity. The community at this temple has helped me appreciate my religion.
I'll be reading on behalf of Oscar Simon. Growing up, while I was proud to be Jewish and celebrate with my family and friends, my main experience in the synagogue was being Jewish through boredom, as I sat for hours listening to prayers I did not understand. Plus, I was mostly there to hang out with my friends. But this changed as I grew and understood connections more and more, first becoming a bar mitzvah and then working as a madrich. I appreciated the prayers and the values behind them more as I was teaching my students. When the rabbis would explain the meanings behind the prayers, I knew that they were speaking to the kids, but in some way, the madrichim got more out of it than they did. This is because we were going back to the basics, such as, if you're angry, you don't hit others, but you should talk about your feelings. Or my favorite prayer, Ve'ahavta, which is a simple teaching about love in different ways. Yes, we all learned these when we were younger, but the basics can get rusty and we need that reminder. Practice doesn't make perfect, but it makes progress. There's no such thing as perfection. We must continue to strive to be better. I'm grateful for Judaism for giving me the building blocks of understanding about how we experience the world, interact with God, and act as a Jew each day. I also like how the temple has progressed over the past few years to bring in more DEI, focus on values, and how everyone learns differently. I really like how we're very open to interpretation, as not everyone sees God or the world in the same way. During COVID, I taught myself to fold origami boxes. For today, and Oscar did this a few days ago, it's absolutely gorgeous, I created a series of boxes around V'ahavta. Each box is not solid. It can move and shift in any direction, and like me, it is not something that sits still. On one side of each box is the Hebrew prayer, but as they rotate around, there's a different value that is meaningful to me and my community. Oscar will bring the boxes tomorrow morning, and I hope you can check it out or create a similar piece for yourself. I think we should all continue to focus on values, how it impacts our journey, looking at our own experience, and how it connects with us. Thank you, Oscar.
Welcome.
Leading into the next prayer with Oscar's beautiful words, we have Shema and Ve'ahavta. If it's your tradition to rise, we welcome you to do so. If it's your tradition to remain seated, we welcome you to do so. But our voices unite as one as we proclaim the oneness of our God. Shema on page 2.
Be seated if you chose to stand.
Well, there have been many incredible moments on this journey. One of the moments that was most inspiring to me was a day where we gathered together on a Sunday afternoon when you started working on all your essays. We were also talking about the service and what the service was going to look like. No quicker than the words Ve'ahavta fell out of my mouth than at least 2 or 3 of you started chanting it immediately, and everyone else eventually joined in. Suddenly I found myself surrounded by half a dozen or more singing Ve'ahavta teens. Hearing the words of love, the words of how we enact love in our world, being chanted so freely, with such joy, with such connection to each other and community, is one of the things that I don't know if anything could fill my heart almost as much as that. It was beautiful. And so it's my honor for all of you now to get to hear that same blessing that I got to hear of Ve'ahavta chanted by these amazing, amazing students. It's my honor to invite forward Max, Maddie, and Oscar again as they lead us in the words of the Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושינתם לבניך ודיברת בם ושבתך ביתך ולכתך בדרך ושופך ובקומך ושרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם אני אדוני אלוהיהם אשר נוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Yasher Kochachem. Please take a seat. That was beautiful. And you can also get that pound Oscar later. Shavuot is the culmination of the past 7 weeks of journeying, which started, of course, with Passover and the Exodus from Egypt. And now in this moment, we get to re-celebrate that moment through the words and melodies of Micha Mocha. And while it is usually our custom to dance as much as we would like in this space, with COVID, I encourage you to dance in your seats, but I encourage you to dance nonetheless. Look at you. So I invite you to join us in the words of Micha Mocha at the top of page 3. Join with.
Micha mocha b'helimat Adonai, Micha mocha nehja b'kodesh, Torah tehilo tosef elem, Torah tehilo tosef elem. Malechutecha ra'u v'hanecha bohokei hayam lifnei Moshe Miriam, Ze Eli anu v'amru, Ze Eli anu v'amru, Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimlok le'olam va'ed. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, Micha mocha nehja b'kodesh, Torah tehilo tosef eleh, Torah tehilo tosef eleh. Yalalai, yalalai, la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la ya la la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
And with that sense of joy for being liberated, we also feel a sense of protection. And so it's an honor to invite Sage Taylor to come forward. Sage is going to lead us with Rabbi Dana in our Hashkivenu prayer. Do you have your booklet, Sage? Terrific. So in our Hashkivenu prayer, that speaks about bringing on the evening. And so if you will read before we sing this and that.
This?
Yep, yep. Okay.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and rise us up. Our guardian to life renewed, spread over us the shelter of your peace.
Blessed are you, eternal one, who showed to us peace is spread over us. Over all Israel and over all Jerusalem, spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Save us for the sake of your name. Shelter us from heated sorrow and pain.
And so stay up here, Sage, because you're going to help us lead the singing of this beautiful prayer, Hashkivenu. Please join us as we sing Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, Hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, V'hamidenu shomreinu
And so I'm telling Sage to stay here because we are so blessed that, do we have your speech up? Yep, you'll go grab it. So I'll invite your colleagues to come up too. Rachel Wexler and Ben Wintraub, if you guys will have a seat over there. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Oscar. And I am going to give the mic over to Sage, who will share her words of Torah, the Torah of her soul.
My Jewish identity is important to me. My Jewish identity is important to me. When I was little, I had brain surgery, and people came together to support me and my family, both within and outside of our community. Before and after the surgery, I had Madrahim, who worked with me, one-on-one. It made me feel different, but I liked it because the Madrahim were so nice and helpful. I also felt community around me at Camp Kalsman. I have so many friends from those experiences. About 3 months ago, I had a friend who passed away who I was so close to. It meant a lot to me how many friends reached out to me that time. I think Judaism teaches me to be very kind and understanding as a friend. In the future, I still want to be a part of the Jewish community by celebrating holidays and coming to Temple Beth El.
Workday Starts at 9 by Rabbi Jason Levine at Temple Beth Am. This is a phrase I'm working on taking to heart. I'm a super busy person, making it seem like I am never at Temple. However, I found that Temple is always with me. You may ask, how does that work? I know it works because Temple is a community, a message that stays with me everywhere. I wasn't sure what to think of the 10 bagel-loving teenagers that came together every Sunday to talk about the future or our Jewish identities, quite frankly because I wasn't sure what mine was. The concept seemed so broad that it was overwhelming. I don't consider myself a very religious person, so I felt trapped thinking I had to be a perfect Jew and follow all the rules to state that I had a Jewish identity. Temple taught me that that was okay because everyone has different extents to what they believe in or don't. Surrounding yourself with people who accept you for who you are is most important over anything, and I am grateful to Temple Beth Am for providing those opportunities. My Jewish identity isn't about whether or not I believe in a God. It's about the values I've learned, skills I've gained, and lifelong connections I have made here. A quote from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov that I found with the help of Rabbi Dana embodies this message quite well. Go carefully. Spiritual growth must proceed slowly and steadily. Too often we want to improve ourselves and our relationships so quickly that we make ourselves frustrated and confused.
The last time I addressed the congregation like this, it was my bar mitzvah, December of 2018. It was a very different time. We had a different president, a different understanding of the precariousness of our health, and a different sense of who we were as a community. In addition to these changes that everyone has experienced, a lot has changed for me personally, which is obvious as in December of 2018, I was 5'4". But many things have changed for me Jewishly, too. After I became a Jewish adult, other people started to ask my opinion on things such as God. As a scientific materialist who disagrees with things like psychics, clairvoyance, and even common harmless beliefs like astrology, I am often questioned about how I can still believe in God. After many years, I've realized that my aversion for these notions stem from my belief in logic and rationality. Although I am friends with many people who believe in mystical ideas not based on scientific foundations, I still can't understand or take part in them. I find these concepts interesting, but they don't bring me comfort or help me feel like a part of something greater. Instead, I find my connection to the universe in a mathematical proof or a chemical equation. Understanding something complicated feels like getting a glimpse of the inner workings of the universe itself, and this makes me feel like part of something larger than myself. When things make sense, I feel connected to the universe. However, the illogical fact that we are conscious and even exist as living, thinking beings is what makes me recognize that there must be something more than logic, more than reason, more than chance that explains why we are here today. Each one of us is a miracle. Atoms come to life, beings created in God's image, with the power to make a positive and lasting impact on our Jewish community and the world at large.
Thank you, Benjamin. We now transition to the next section of our service, which is the Amidah. It's an honor to call up Flora and Rachel to lead us over the next few pages. If you are able, we welcome you to rise.
Adonai, Sephof Taiftifta, Ufi Agita Hilateha. Adonai, open up my mouth, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Avinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Ve'elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, Ve'komer Hakol Ve'zoher Azvot v'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mehaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Harua Makayel Hayim Behesed, Mehaye HaKol Berahamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Mihamo Haba'al Gevurot, Umido Mela, Melech Memid, Umehayem, Umatmiya Yeshua, V'ne'emanata lehayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mehaye hakol.
Kadosh, v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
We take the next few moments for silent prayer through page number 6, including special prayers for this festival of Shavuot. We take this moment for reflection on our own identity, however it may be. After you've completed your moment of silence, please be seated.
Vador,
from generation to generation. And we know that each generation is lucky and blessed to have so many individuals around them who guide them, who help share life with them, but who also support them in times of difficulty, in times of sickness. And so at this moment in time, we turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing, whether it be of body or spirit. And we invite you to share the names that you are thinking of aloud or hold them in your heart at this time. Invite two individuals up to help lead it with me. My apologies for not inviting you sooner. Ben Kahn and Benjamin Wintraub are going to help lead us as a community in these words of healing, the Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen.
Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Thank you both so much. You can be seated. And now we have the honor to hear from more of our amazing students as they share about their Jewish identity. It is with great pleasure that I invite up Flora Bradley, Susanna Chikale, and Neela Klinghofer to share their thoughts.
For as long as I can remember, I've always known as a fundamental fact about myself that I am a Jew. However, I didn't always know what that meant. Growing up, we would always go to my grandparents' house for Passover Seder. We would get dressed in nice clothes, pile in the car, and drive over in preparation to make the big sacrifice of no bread for a week. Despite the hardship of a carb-free week, I always liked Passover. I'd walk in, turn to my right, and see the long table turned at an angle in the dining room. It was filled with plates, cups, centerpieces, and the Seder plate in all its glory. I'd then walk into the kitchen, and it would be filled with people painted with smiling faces, and I'd immediately feel at home. The kids would quickly depart and clamber down the stairs with giggles and stomping footsteps. As the night would unfold, there would be discussion, song, and tradition. In all my memories, there was always a warm, glowing tint surrounding them. I think what made it so special was the small community I was making in that house. The Jewish kids from school would come, and I felt my connection to them grow within those few hours. As I've gotten older, my connection to my Jewish identity has only deepened. As I've gone to religious school, giggled in the library during Pizza Tuesdays, gone to sleepaway camp, ran through the dark on secret cookie-stealing missions, and written fake love letters to the boys' cabin. Even though these things might not seem very related to Judaism, in each moment, I was building the community that made me feel the most connected to my Jewish identity. It's the people I've met and the friends I've made that have caused my experience to be both meaningful and fun. As I go on to discover and develop more aspects of my life, my Jewish identity anchors and connects me to the community around me.
My whole life, being Jewish meant my Jewish education. I went to religious school and camp, but that was the extent of my Jewish identity. I considered myself Jewish because I knew the prayers, the stories, and I celebrated the holidays. I never considered myself Jewish because it meant something to me. This was until I went and lived in Israel for 2 months this winter. One day in Israeli study, our teacher asked us if we thought there were things that a Jew must do or believe to be considered a Jew. My immediate answer was that a Jew must have a Jewish education in order to be considered Jewish. You can't practice a religion in which you know nothing about. After spending 2 months in Israel, my answer goes a bit deeper. It's not about the knowledge of the religion, it's also about how you connect to that knowledge and how it fits into your morals and beliefs as a person. I remember during our talk in class, one of my friends, Kate, said something like, as a Jew, you have this unexplainable feeling that you know you're Jewish. I disagreed with this partly at the time it was said, because if I thought it was just about a feeling that you get, then anyone could consider themselves Jewish, because anyone can just get a feeling. I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think that just anyone can go to Israel and feel the way that I felt while being there. I got to Israel and I immediately felt at home. I felt at home not only in the land of my ancestors, but I felt at home within my Jewish community. I had never felt that way before. Not just anyone can go to Israel and feel this way. Only someone who's Jewish can. The feeling I had while being there was that unexplainable feeling that Kate talked about. And to me, being Jewish is that unexplainable feeling.
Unfortunately, for most of my life, my primary connection to Judaism has been rooted in anger. My Jewish identity has always been inextricably tied to the isolation of being a Jew in a city that's less than 1% Jewish and all of the ignorance that I've experienced because of this. All of my friends and family know that for me, the Christmas season is full of emotional outbursts. There have been times when I've burst into tears after being wished a Merry Christmas by well-meaning cashiers. And then there's the anger attached to all of my experiences with anti-Semitism, ranging from the innocent but infuriating misunderstanding to the scary acts of real hatred. Only very, very recently have I begun to realize that all of this festering, incessant anger is not doing anything but hurting my relationship with my faith. As Rabbi Jonathan Sachs writes, happiness takes many forms. There is the happiness of one who is at peace with the world and the happiness of one who challenges and changes the world. I hope that I can work to channel these feelings into gratitude that I have the ability to educate others about my culture. And with this, I want to also work towards feeling more gratitude for all of the many joyous and beautiful aspects of Jewish culture. With this in mind, I can continue to deepen my relationship with Judaism.
Thank you all to all of our wonderful students. And I encourage you as well to be sure to take time to read the Jewish identity statements from Cole Liffman, from Joey Sider, and from Maddie Tim, who are not here tonight, along with mentioning Zev Roshi, who did not write something because he's living it right now, living in Israel as well. We continue together with Aleinu Lishabeach on the bottom of that page. Apologize, there's not a number on that page. If you're able, we rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu leshabeach latot hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu lechol hamonam, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
If you're standing, please be seated. Page number 7. Take this time during our Shavuot service for Kaddish at home, our Mourner's Kaddish. We invite you, both here and at home, to share the names of loved ones you're thinking of on this Shabbat. And we and the whole community are remembering all the victims of gun violence that have occurred in the past few weeks. We invite you to add names for this Mourner's Kaddish prayer if you choose. We rise together in love and solidarity as one community to offer these words of the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yurte v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kariv imru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivarach Le'olam Olamei Olmaya. Yit Barach V'yishtabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Roman V'yit Naseh. V'yitodar V'yitalei V'yitalal Shmei D'Kudesha Barichu. Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata. Tushbechata V'nechamata. Da'amiram Be'alma V'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'imramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Yoshvei tevel, all who dwell on the earth.
Please be seated.
In just a moment, we will have an opportunity to bless our covenant renewal class and then bring this service to a conclusion. So I am grateful to be able to have an opportunity to share with you. Often, if you have older siblings or if you come regularly to the covenant renewal service, you know that often there is a slideshow. And in fact, this class was scheduled to go to Washington, D.C., to lobby at the Religious Action Center, to live our values, and like so much else in your adolescence, COVID, there was a spike. I think that was the beginning of Omicron. And we didn't make it to DC. And really, in so many ways, this was one of the other moments when I realized that each of you, in your own ways, is like our ancestor Ruth, who, through a strange time, helped with courage, with inspiration, with uncertainty, to move us to this moment now. And so here we are, we're at Shavuot, And here we are, we're at this moment when you are renewing your connection, your commitment to the three pillars of Judaism as we understand it: God, Torah, and Israel. I would say that while at Sinai, we received Torah in the very specific sense, at least that's what we're told, that all of the teachings that come afterwards also influence who we are. And I think for this class, the notion that we say in the prayer, Adon Olam, Adonai li v'lo ira, the divine, however I understand it, is with me, and I will not fear. You all, the Covenant Renewal class of 5782, have helped us understand what it means to live in a time of uncertainty. You actually understand this world in a way that we who are older than you do not. And we thank you for committing to covenant renewal during this time, committing to something bigger than yourselves. And so the way you did that was by embracing the notion of Torah, of learning. But you all embody the idea that we are taught in Talmud that when you are a Jewish adult, as each of you are, you don't just learn to learn, you learn to do. And so perhaps this group of students didn't do things with walking down the same path as generations before them, but what they were able to do, despite the restrictions of living during a pandemic, was they created 3 projects based on the values that they hold dear. We spent the year learning about what it means for them to wrestle with their own Jewish values, as you've heard so beautifully, and then how they can help transform and change our congregation, our city, and our world. So I have the honor of telling you about 3 projects that we worked on all together, and they venture from the philosophical to the very physical, to the deferred until after COVID, and I'll explain what I mean. The philosophical, this group, during our conversations, helped raise the awareness for my rabbinic colleagues and for Raina Abraham, our manager of our youth learning community, that the way that we've always taught you about tzedakah as part of a learning community hasn't really resonated. And you helped us create new principles for how we're going to help our students next year in the GON, in our youth learning community, integrate tzedakah in a way that feels meaningful and has a real impact. So the first social justice project was to transform how we ourselves as a sacred community at Temple Beth Am engage in giving in a way that actually can help not only change whatever it is that we're focusing on, but can also change ourselves. This class reminded us that giving of tzedakah isn't just for the recipient, but it's character development for the individual. And we say thank you for that. The second, and I should say that all 3 of these projects have within it an idea that we need to do what we can to help prevent the damage of climate change. But this class wanted to focus on environmental justice, especially for underserved communities. And so our second social justice project is the one that will be deferred. I finally got word this week. We want to, as a class, clean up a community park in downtown Seattle. And I've been told that they're on hold for that, but we will make sure that we fulfill your vision for this, for the cleaning up of the park. And then the third and final task is tomorrow morning. I hope you'll join us as part of our Shavuot celebration. We are doing something called Mend the World, where we are sharing, we're upcycling, we're taking our clothes that perhaps someone else might be able to wear, still good. Perhaps we're doing some mending for it, and then we'll do a trade, and that which we do not bring home ourselves to limit our carbon footprint, we'll donate to those in need. So this group has helped us understand what it means to be in relationship to something bigger than ourselves, what our community understands of God, what it means to be in relationship to Torah in a way that is meaningful and relevant right now in 2022. And finally, and this is the part that I think makes me the most verklempt, this class, this covenant renewal class, teaches us about what it means to be part of Yisrael, the community that wrestles with ideas, the community that wrestles with God, but the community, Kol Yisrael Aravim Zeh B'Zeh. Everyone in our community is responsible for one another. This group of teens demonstrated that by showing up for one another, by showing up for our congregation, and by showing up for our people. They have been such a gift to us and to our community. And because of that, my rabbinic colleagues and I would like to invite the Covenant Renewal class of 5782 to please join us here on the bima. And actually, you guys, remember, this is when you're going to come in front of the ark. So all of your families can see your beautiful punums, that's your faces. And there you go. And if you guys can just get a little closer, just a little closer. Jamie, are we good for the screen?
We got an okay.
A little closer to Susanna, then a little closer to there we go. Okay. And so we are so blessed to see you, our Ben and Sage and Susanna and Maddie and Neela and Oscar and Rachel and Max and Flora and our friends in absentia. We are so grateful to you for sticking it out. And what I want to say to you is the same thing that I said to some of you a few years ago at your B'nai Mitzvah. It's easy to be here right now at Mount Sinai, as it were, to receive the blessings of a community that loves you. And what we know is that it is not just on Shavuot that you stand before us as teachers of Torah, but when you step down from Sinai and the day after Shavuot and each day after that, each of you will continue to be for us our teachers, our friends, our colleagues. And may you grow from joy to joy and strength to strength as you go on your Jewish community. We are blessed to share with you the oldest words in the Jewish tradition, the priestly benediction.
May God bless and keep each one of you.
And may the light of the divine that so clearly radiates from you continue to shine upon you and be gracious to you.
May God's presence be with you each moment of your life, up here at Mount Sinai, next few years in our community, and wherever your journey takes you beyond. May God always be with you and grant you peace.
And for us as one community, I invite you to stand up and let us together as people who are so grateful to this class sing together the chant together, the Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Mazal tov to you all. You all stay here. You may be seated. Just a few last announcements before our class leads us in our closing song. There will be an oneg, of course, for those of you joining in person after services here tonight. Our Shavuot holiday festival continues tomorrow, where our Gone learning will be all about Shavuot, and there will be a Shavuot festival morning service, including Yisker, which will be held in the annex, which is our space off to the other side over here, beautifully set for Shavuot. Again, our Mend the World event, led by this amazing group, is tomorrow, so please bring clothes. Please encourage your friends at Bethlehem to do as well. We really want to help as many people as possible. And finally, for the class themselves, oh yeah, come on forward. And we're going to, as we arrange ourselves for the closing song, this class, even though DC did not happen this year, we're excited that they are welcome to join us for DC next year. And of course, we invite everyone in this group to join us for our New York trip, which is now for our 11th and 12th graders. So we really hope that those trips will happen and you will join us next year. But our closing song tonight is selected by the class, celebrating this holy community that we have together, is Kehila Kedosha.
If you are a Tem, then we're Nitzavim. We stand here today, remember the dream. If you are a Tem, then we're Nitzavim. We stand here today, remember the dream. If you are a Tem, then we're Nitzavim. We stand here today, remember the dream. If you are a Tem, then we're Nitzavim. We stand here today, Kedosha, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Each one of us must play a part. Each one of us must seek the truth. Each one of us must seek the truth. Each one of us to the part of it all. Each one of us must remember the pain. Each one of us must find the joy. Each one of us, each one of us. Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Where? Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, Kehila, Kedosha, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la.
Chag Sameach.
It's all good.
Thank you to Noah as well.